Now let's listen to the approach that Stuart Albertson would take to fight for your inheritance.
Okay, so we've got two problems here. The first is the trustee, in this case Ben, has refused to diversify the trust assets, something the probate code requires that he do. The second problem here is that Ben intentionally kept from Sam that Sam was supposed to be a co-trustee with Ben, helping to administer the trust as it goes forward. In other words, under this amendment, I think Linda, the settlor, wanted Sam to have some power and authority and to be able to make decisions with Ben on how the trust should be administered. So we get to our 5 options. Which is the best of the 5 options? Well, let me start with the 4th option, and that was to contest the amendment. That is the worst idea. You don't want to contest the amendment. You don't need to contest the amendment. In fact, the amendment is what makes Sam a co-trustee with Ben of the trust. So we don't want to contest that. If we contest it and there's a really solid no contest clause, we could have a position where Sam is disinherited from this rather large estate. Well, what about removal, accounting, surcharge, and resignation? I think you've got to try the soft approach first, and that would be sending a letter to Ben saying, hey, we know, number one, that you have failed to diversify these trust assets as required under the probate code, and we know that you have withheld the information from Sam that he is a co-trustee with you in this trust. We're asking that you resign and appoint another, or that we can appoint another fiduciary to take over, another trustee that will work with Sam going forward on the trust. This may or may not be successful, but this would be the path of least resistance, and it should be at least attempted. If Ben says, no, I refuse to resign, then I think Sam's in a position where he probably should file for removal, accounting, and surcharge. The question is, does Sam file for all of those at one time? The one thought I would have here, and it's not an option up here, but I want to add it as I'm thinking about it now, and that is, maybe we simply want to confirm that Sam is in fact a co-trustee of the trust with Ben. Once we could get a court to confirm that Sam is a co-trustee, then Sam has the ability to come in and get all of the records that Ben has had for however long since Mom died, and to go through all of the actions of Ben to see how has Ben been administering this trust. If Ben had diversified this trust to begin with, right after Mom died, there would have been a large pool of assets that could have been used to kick off income to Sam every single year. There also would have been adequate principal available to make distributions for Sam's health, maintenance, welfare, and support. So let's say that the monthly income that's kicked off to Sam isn't enough to pay for all of his medical doctors, for his health insurance, for his rent, for his apartment, for perhaps a school he's going to, for tuition and books and those kind of things. We could actually dip into the principal of the trust to pay for those items, which is perfectly acceptable. But the way that Ben has set this trust up, he's set it up for himself, essentially to be an employment function for him, where he receives a management fee for running the apartment buildings and renting out the house, and also receives a trustee's fee for administering the trust. Well, that was not the purpose of the trust. The trust was to benefit Sam. So we want to make sure Sam is benefited. So I think the first thing I would do is file a loan, a single cause of action, and that is to have the probate court confirm Sam as a co-trustee of the trust, and then we'd be able to get all the information we need to determine if in fact Ben has breached the terms of the trust, which we know he already has by failing to diversify, but what about all the payments he's made to himself? What about all the other bad decisions he's made that have hurt the growth of the trust by investing in an apartment building that may not have been the best vehicle to invest in, and also investing cash into the house, which needed a lot of upgrades before it could be rented out for a low amount, in this case, lower than $2,000 of rental value that the fair market value would call for. Once that's filed, I think the probate court would confirm Sam. We would get the access to information. At that point, you could file for removal. You want Ben to account for all of his actions, which you'll already have a lot of the documents anyway to show that. You'll have been able to go to the bank as a co-trustee of the trust and get all the bank statements so that you can see all of the things that Ben has done during his tenure as trustee. And then, of course, we want to surcharge. We want to get damages, money damages against Ben for the harms to the trust. The easiest one here would be for renting the house out for less than fair market value. So we'd find out how long he should have been renting out the house. It should have been an extra $2,000 a year in rent, or $2,000 a month in rent. You multiply that by the number of months he's been trustee, and we ask him to reimburse the trust for that amount out of his own pocket. We also want to look and see if his failure to diversify has limited the returns that the trust has with the old apartment building and the house, that he had to put a lot of money into both to put in a position to be rented out, which has severely constrained Sam's standard of living. Sam is living on $3,000 a month, and it is not easy to live on $3,000 a month for anybody, especially with somebody in Sam's position. But setting that aside, Sam's mom set this trust up to make sure he could have a reasonable standard of living going forward, and she wanted him to have input into that, all things that have been taken away from him by Ben's decisions. So in a nutshell, I'd send a letter first asking Sam to simply step down and turn everything over to Ben and to Sam and a new trustee. And then I would file to have Sam confirmed as a co-trustee of the trust, which I think the probate court would do. We get access to records and information to determine what Ben has been doing as trustee. And if we see that Ben has breached the terms of the trust, which we already see that he has by failing to diversify, we bring a petition to have him removed as trustee. We want him to account to Sam as now another co-trustee of the trust, all of Ben's actions for as long as Ben has been a trustee. And then for the damages that Ben has caused to the trust, we want to get a surcharge against Ben for those amounts.